Hello all. I watched the Castle of Fu Manchu with Christopher Lee in last night. I was saying so earlier yesterday when I put a post out. I've got mixed feelings about the film because I like the concept of Sax Rohmer's Fu Manchu. I used to think it was great as a kid, and I remember Christopher Lee as Fu Manchu as a kid watching them and really enjoyed them. I thought they were great, and I still had that lovely nostalgic feeling while watching the film. But my word, I couldn't believe how corny it was. It really was very, very corny. A typical film made in the 60s, a little bit twee, a little bit poppy with its type of presentation. And it reminded me a little bit like when we were kids in the 1960s and we used to go to Saturday morning pictures. I used to go to the Nayland or the cinema in Stoke Newington. I used to get dropped off there when my mum used to go shopping, and she'd put me and my sister in. It was like the matinee you would get at Saturday morning pictures after you'd watched all the cartoons. And it was enjoyable from that type of thing, and the concept was quite good. But as I was watching this film, it had, I'm sure it it must have stolen bits and pieces of film that had been edited out of other films. Like Fu Manchu's invented this machine, this beautiful sort of machine, and it looks like a scene from James Bond's Dr. No, you know, with all these computers and flashing lights, and he's working all these computers with his helpers all around him and his beautiful daughter who is as wicked as he is. And they've found a way of making the sea turn to ice, you know, so he can bring up these great big icebergs randomly and put them in front of oncoming shipping. And this is what he does in the Caribbean, where there's no icebergs. It's the Caribbean Sea, and he sinks this ship, and then he threatens the world that he's going to do it all over the place, you know, with these random icebergs. I think he's captured some scientist who's made this machine for him, you know, under duress, and put in a prison cell and so forth. And yeah, the plot's like, it's the concept's good, but the plot is so corny. It's really sort of I don't know how to say it, but I liked it, but I don't think it would work nowadays with the cinema audience now, especially young kids. When we were young kids back in the 60s, I think our outlooks were very much different from the way young kids might look at a Fu Manchu movie today. It's like it's got little bits of film, as I was saying, stolen. You know, maybe when they made A Night to Remember, the Titanic movie, maybe when they made that, they had some loose cuttings of the ship hitting an iceberg or going towards an iceberg. And it seemed like that, because it seemed like the Titanic hitting an iceberg from another film's cast-offs or something. And you've got all of these things that you can't help picking holes in. But I loved the film, you know. You had Richard Green as Nayland Smith, who's on the tail of I was going to say Ho Chi Minh then, of Fu Manchu, and it all builds up to a nice sort of like ending and everything, you know, and Christopher Lee doing his normal thing, the world shall hear from me again. But it was a fun film. It just doesn't stand the test of time. I think if they tried to make a Fu Manchu film today, that it would have to be a little bit more increased on the horror side of things, because it's this sort of cartoon suggested horror. I mean, in one scene when they capture this castle in Turkey, it's going to be Fu Manchu's headquarters. They shoot, it's like because it's set in the late 1920s or early 1930s time zone, and they turn up in this like American type spoked wheeled gangsters car, and they machine gun all these men at this archway, the guards at this castle. And then all these men are sneaking in, all these like ninja type Chinese men. I know ninja's Japanese, but they like ninja type Chinese men sneaking in. They would have just alerted the entire world. They've just machine gunned all the guards at the entrance. And when they've sneaked into this castle compound, they're still catching all the guards sleeping on duty and just slowly ambling about doing their guard duties, and all getting taken by surprise as these men overpower them. And obviously they quickly take the castle. Fu Manchu's got his headquarters, and Nayland Smith is on his way to sort things out. But yeah, it was a fun film, but I keep thinking in my head, it's sort of like a Sexton Blake type thing as well, isn't it? You know, when we were kids back in the 60s, we liked all of that, but I just don't think it would stand up in today's world. If they did try to make it, as I've said, it would have to be more sinister. Fu Manchu would have to be visibly more sinister, with his beautiful daughter visibly more sinister. When they do these wicked things to people, I think it'd have to be more on a horror, sort of slight horror level, and to take itself a little bit more seriously. You'd still have to have it set in that old colonial 20s 30s time zone, because that was how it was back then. But it was still entertaining. I think that Doctor Who's Talons of Wang Chiang must have copied some ideas from that, but in its own way. Even the Doctor Who thing was a bit more superior than the film. Sometimes the stories are good, but you know, like Doctor Who, when you had rubbery monsters and really bad props, you still enjoyed the story. This Fu Manchu, is, for a film, it's got some really bad props and some really diabolical continuity, but it's still a fun story to watch. You know, just sit down and have a cup of tea and enjoy it. I think I'm probably biasedly nostalgic towards it because it's Christopher Lee. Again, I think if you had to make a modern film, you couldn't make a Caucasian man into a Chinese man. You'd have to have a proper Chinese actor, because some of it is quite comical, because Christopher Lee just doesn't look like a Chinaman, despite them trying to make him look like one. It probably doesn't work on that level either. So it's fun, but it's only probably fun for people that are like my age. I'm 64. People that are in their late 50s into their 70s and 80s will remember it fondly, nostalgically, and would still enjoy the film, but you'd probably slate it off a little bit anyway. But that was the way. It's a good film and it was a good watch. I'm going to watch another one tonight. I bought another one with it because it's a double-sided one. It's the Castle of Fu Manchu on one side, and I think it's the face of Fu Manchu on the other. So I'll watch it. I'll watch another one tonight just for a little grimble. Anyway, have a good time. All the best.